everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games deep dive review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a friend of the show, co-host of No Small Games podcast, a Twitch streamer, and interior decorating enthusiast. Welcome to the show, Kate Hunter, aka Katerblossom.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm so excited. I've been digging into the backlog of your show and having a great time listening, so it's nice to be connected now that Blue Sky and amazing things like that exist.
Exactly, yeah, and same to you and Emily over at No Small Games. It's been a good time getting to know the both of you, and sneak peek, we'll have Emily on the show here in probably a couple months or so for a different game, a very different game than this one, but that's a secret for now. Today, we're going to talk about Unpacking, which is an organization and a puzzle game developed by Witchbeam and published by Humble Bundle for contemporary consoles and PC in 2021. Some quick credits for Unpacking. The director is Ren Breyer, produced by Kip Bounier, I hope I'm saying that right, Erica Mariko Olsen, and design credits to Ren Breyer and Tim Dawson. So, if this is your first time listening to the show, first time tuning in, first of all, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate when you come and check out the podcast. Here's how spoilers work. So if you have not played Unpacking, you're in luck because we don't spoil things for a while. We will give a warning when spoilers are coming. And until then, you don't have to worry. You can listen worry-free. That's the word, worry-free. And then down in the show notes, there's a timestamp for when spoilers will begin for Unpacking. So if you don't really know about Unpacking, thank you for clicking on a podcast about a game you've never heard of. We have quick pitches for what Unpacking is. I say this is an interior decorator sim hiding a very thoughtful story. Kate, what would you say?
I am calling it a life's story told through things we use and lose.
Perfect. That's a great description, and that's part of the draw, I think, for this game is you get a little bit of both. You get to decorate, you get to unpack stuff, and you get to learn about the people along the way.
Definitely, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So real quick stats. I've now played this 2 times. I played on PC both times. It takes about 2 or 3 hours to get through a playthrough for me. How about you? Where did you play this? How long does it take you?
So I've played this on my PC, and I've also played it on the Steam Deck and mobile. I actually don't even know how many times I've played through it. I want to say maybe 5 or 6. The first time I played it, it took me 7 hours because I was streaming it and having a lot of commentary throughout and pauses. Yeah.
Fair enough. So let's get right into that personal history with Unpacking here. So we always start with the guest, and this was a game that I had always kind of had in the break glass in case I need a short game for the podcast list. I always knew it was one I'd have a good time talking about. So what was it that made you want to play this? And then I'm sure we'll get into why this was a game we both wanted to talk about.
Totally. So at the time that I had found this game, I was just barely getting into video games in general. I was gifted a Switch Lite and a copy of Animal Crossing New Horizons at the perfect time in 2020 when that was a thing. So, I didn't really grow up gaming. I had played, some hand-me-down games growing up, but I always thought the games were for boys. So I was totally new at gaming at this point when I had come across Unpacking. I didn't really know much about it, but it just looked like a game that I really wanted to play. I think it's got that really charming pixel art that really had me hooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I played this for the first time in 2021. I don't remember why I played this. I don't remember how it came on my radar. I probably just saw it on a Nintendo Direct or something like that and thought it looked kind of cool, kind of relaxing. And whatever I saw, the trailer, whatever, it must have hinted at the fact that they're going to tell a story through this kind of unpacking thing. And as somebody who has moved a lot and made a couple of very big moves in my life, the premise of telling the story through the stuff that you move with you or maybe what you don't move with you. That was really appealing to me because I had like been thinking about that as I move from country to country and apartment to apartment and all that stuff. I'd been thinking about like, why did I bring this with me and stuff like that? Like, what do these things say about me? Especially when I had moved overseas and I brought things that were like very sentimental to me, and like that more than ever, if someone would have like walked into my apartment, then they would see like, oh, you really value this. You took this across the ocean with you, you know? So that really appealed to me.
I have so many questions about that later. That's really interesting. Yeah, I feel like I also, 2021 was a time where I was thinking a lot about stuff and moving, because I think the pandemic starting caused a lot of us to move. And I had just finished working on a play with a theater group where we bought a storage unit at an auction and we used all the stuff inside to sort of tell a story. We used the stuff to build a set, make lighting structures out of, and write a script and everything. So we really got to know this person without even knowing him, just through the things that he kept in his storage unit. So
yeah,
I was coming right off the heels of that project around when I found this game. So it just felt like a perfect moment, I guess.
Yeah, that is pretty perfect. Yeah. And like to do our quick kind of top level thoughts here, that promise of telling the story through the stuff that's in your boxes when you move, or maybe your suitcases or something, I think that's like really, really well done here. And the kind of like what you see if you see a trailer for Unpacking is you'll see someone like taking stuff out and rotating it and placing it on shelves or something like that. And like, that's really relaxing. The music is great. The sound design is amazing in this game. Like if it was just a puzzle game about unpacking the boxes without that storytelling angle, it would still be a really good game. But what pushes this into like, it was in my top 10 games for 2021 when I did that podcast all way back in the early days of this podcast. What pushes it up there is that they did make the real attempt to tell that story. And there's so many details in here that tell the story of the main character. And like, there's no dialogue in this game. There are no journals to read. There is a journal, and there's like one little phrase at the end of every level, but it's not like one of those games where you learn about a character by reading through like entire diary entries or something. It's just what's in the boxes. That is it. And through that limitation, I think they tell a really, really good story here. And so this game is really good, and I'm happy to have revisited it after, 3+ years now, I suppose. It had kind of faded into that, like, it'd be cool to replay that someday. And now I'm glad that I finally did.
Yeah, because you really notice something different each time. And I think that for me, it can mean more each time, depending on like what phase of my life I'm in when I revisit it or when I play it. It's also just a really big comfort game for me, but I'm glad that you bring that up because I think there's so much here. And I think they're definitely trying to hook you with like, it's a cozy aesthetic game where you can put things away and it's really satisfying, but there's so much under the surface and it really is some super creative storytelling. And I think that, a lot of times cozy games do get overlooked as just an aesthetic thing. So it means a lot to me that there are, titles out there that can tell such powerful stories and have amazing narratives. Yeah,
for sure. And like there's nothing wrong with having like you said, that cozy game that is just kind of like, it's a vibe. You're there to relax. You're there to do relaxing activities and chill. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. But there is potential within what we might call cozy mechanics or something like that. So it's good to see something like this, or like, I don't know when this episode's going to come out really, but there's a game coming out, Wanderstop, that seems like it's going to do a very similar type of thing, within cozy mechanics, tell a story. So I'm always excited when people look for new angles to tell stories like that. Not that this stuff is like new and no one's ever done it before, but
That's so true. And I also think that it's fun that we're starting to have the conversation of like what is cozy and how cozy can mean different things to different people. Because my cozy game that I play on Switch when I'm in bed is Vampire Survivors, which I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
other people are like, that is so unhinged that that's your cozy game. But I don't know. I think that it's good we're having these conversations, and I'm happy that games like this exist so that we don't have to overlook them just because they're cozy. I think they could appeal, especially a title like this could appeal to pretty much anybody.
Yeah. And I think that the quote, the cozy games are probably a very underrepresented type of feeling on this podcast. I don't do a lot of them on the show because I don't end up playing a lot of things that might be considered that way. But I have my own version of cozy games. Like I play, well, I've talked about this before, but like I find From Software games pretty relaxing and pretty meditative, even though they are difficult and I get mad sometimes. A lot of times I do have that kind of meditative experience with it. So we have maybe a more traditional one here today. So let's listen to a bit of music. When we come back, we will set up the story in Unpacking, and then also we'll talk about what it's like to actually play the game, because they're very much one and the same here in this game. In Unpacking, you start in 1997 is the first year. And so you play through these different years and time periods in your main character's life. So the game begins in 1997. You play as a young girl who is unpacking your first bedroom, your own bedroom for the first time, as they mention. And you learn some quick things about her, as we said, through the things that are in the boxes. There is a soccer trophy, there's a dreidel, there's a Tamagotchi, there's a Game Boy Pocket, as we're back in the late 90s here. There are a bunch of art supplies, so we learn a little bit about what our character is into at this age. And then it skips forward after that to 2004. And in 2004, your character is moving into a dorm room for the first time. And so I'll stop there at like what's happening in the character's life, but just to introduce how this game works, how the storytelling is done. You'll jump from scene to scene, and you're either unpacking a single room, or later and later you're unpacking an entire apartment, or maybe moving into an apartment where other people live. So this kind of like jump in time is how they do it. And I thought that despite there being, I don't know, how many levels are in this? Like 8 to 10?
Yeah, I want to say 7 or 8.
Yeah. So there's not that many levels here, but I think that they do tell a fairly, like, obviously you don't know everything about your character, but they do tell a sufficient story of your character's life in this time span, even despite the fact that there's not, dozens of levels.
Totally. And I think by the end, we do have a, pretty clear picture of who this person might be, which is a really exciting journey to go on.
Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of camp out here on, it's that main premise again, but it is the method that this story is being told. And the big theme of the game, I think, is that your story, everybody's story, our individual stories can be told in part by the things that we take with us when we move, and especially those sentimental objects, those things that we care about to keep around, things that we have a connection with, and some things that we may define ourselves by as we take them with us. So I thought about the time when I moved overseas. So in 2015, I moved to South Korea, and with me, I had 2 checked bags, my carry-on bag, and a backpack. That was what I took with me when I moved overseas. Basically, like whatever you're allowed to take on the airplane without paying extra, that's what I took, right? And so I've told this story before, but my checked bags were all full of clothes. My backpack had like my computer in it and stuff like that. And my carry-on bag had my gaming consoles. That was all that was in there. I had a Wii U and an Xbox 360, and that's it. because you can't put those in checked bags because the electronics or something like that. So I had to put them in the carry-on, and that was all that would fit. So that's all that I took with me. And so in a way, that kind of says what I valued at the time.
Oh,
like
yeah.
what do I need so much, or what do I value so much that like this is what I'm going to use my valuable luggage space on when I move overseas is the Xbox 360 and the Wii U.
Those are also like things you really have to commit to carrying with you, because I feel like they're not portable. They're not intended to be like portable consoles, right?
No. And like it's the consoles, but it's also the power cords, the controllers, all of that stuff. It, literally, like my carry-on bag was just full of that. And then when we moved back to the United States a couple years ago, one of our carry-on bags was our dog, because that counts as a carry-on bag.
So important.
Yeah. Important. Yeah, for sure. And then my other carry-on bag was my PS5 because it's so fucking big. It takes up an entire carry-on bag by itself. So
PS5s are really big. That's so funny because when you were talking about what you were bringing with you, I was just thinking about how I'm not really like a heavy packer, and I honestly really don't hold on to that many things, but I think my consoles at this point are my most like cherished items, and they're things that I carry with me honestly to work every day because I'm mostly a Steam Deck player and Nintendo Switch player. So I make sure I have one of those on me basically at all times. So I like that you're making me think, or I guess reminding me that those are things that I always want to have with me.
Right. And it's like, those are some of my most valuable possessions, if we want to think about it that way, like dollar value, right? But also, I could, at the time, like I couldn't have imagined not taking my Wii U with me,
right?
You know, when I moved overseas or something like that. And I also took a bunch of like sentimental stuff. Like I have a collection of ticket stubs that I've been, you know, collecting for my whole life, and it's just in a bag, but I take it everywhere I move. I won't throw that stuff away, and I have grand plans of displaying them somehow, but I never do it. It's just I sometimes I'll look through that bag and I'll be like, this is the ticket for the Green Day concert I went to in 2005. And
oh, hell yeah.
Remember like how much fun that was. And I took that with me overseas. So like the point I'm trying to make is that like as you go through this person's stuff in Unpacking, they really captured, like you can look at the stuff that this character has and be like, I kind of know them a little bit because I know what they value so much. They don't throw it away, and they don't leave it at their parents' house when they go to college. Like they take it with them because they value that stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like you yourself, like the player, can have the opportunity to become connected to the character based on the items that they have. Whether they're, you know, their personal items or even their roommates' items, I'm pretty sure everyone could see themselves represented in this game in terms of things, right? Like everyone could find something that they connect with, whether it's our main character's item or not, which I think is a really cool thing that they did.
Yeah. Well, it was a smooth move by the developers to include all the Nintendo consoles in the series. Yeah. There's Game Boys, there's a GameCube, there's a Wii in one of the apartments. So at least we can all connect with that, at least.
Totally. I also, when you were talking about how you save your ticket stubs, I was just thinking about like how I really don't save much either, but I do save all of my playbills, like when I see a Broadway show. So I don't have them on me, I guess, but my mom collects them all for me when I get a new one. So I'm really glad that you were actually reminding me of things that I hold on to, because I was racking my brain trying to think of things that I actually keep, because I could honestly throw anything away.
Interesting. It's weird. I'm not a pack rat. Like I don't keep everything, but I also keep a lot of stuff, and stuff that may or may not actually be important. Like, you know, I probably have a bunch of stuff down in one of my drawers down there that's just, you know, I couldn't tell you what's in that drawer, but I've taken it with me through like 5 moves, and I've never opened the drawer since putting it in there when I moved here like 3 years ago, but I need it. So
you need it. It's your stuff. I also think it's fun as we grow to find new things to collect, because my little sisters have recently gotten back into buying Pokemon cards and opening them. And that's something we do together that is so hype. Like we're like, oh, let's open a each open 6-pack of cards together. And I hold on to all of those cards now because it just reminds me of being with them.
Yeah.
And I just got my first record player, so now I'm collecting records. So I think we see that in our main character too. Like as her interests evolve, she holds on to new things.
Yeah, for sure. And there are some key things that are kept the entire time as you play through Unpacking, that your character obviously has like very deep sentimental connections with. So when that thing shows up and you pull it out of the box, maybe it's like stuffed way down in a box. It's one of the last things to come out, but you get that little just happy reaction when you see it pop out and you're like, yeah, it's still here. They still care about this thing.
Absolutely. Like, I don't want to say specific items yet because I feel like we're not there. But yeah, it's funny because you're also reminding me how the stuff is that she has at the beginning of the game is not like super organized really well. So you do have those moments of, oh, here's this random item that maybe shouldn't be in this box.
Oh, yeah. That felt real to me too. You know, the fact that a lot of the boxes are pretty organized, you know, like generally the kitchen stuff is with the other kitchen stuff, but there's always random stuff in random boxes. And it feels like in some of the levels, there's just a random shit box where like, we do that too. When we move, it's just like, we'll organize the stuff, but like keep one box to just fill with all the random stuff that's left at the very end. It all goes in the same box. And this game kind of captured that feeling too of, you know, you open it up and it's when you go into those multi-room apartments, it's kind of annoying because you have to like click through all the screens and then go back to the box and then, oh, this one's in a different room and go back there. But it feels real too, to just be like, oh yeah, that's the random stuff box.
Yeah, you gotta have a random stuff box. And also it sounds like it's good that you're compatible in that way because with me and my partner, we do not, he craves organization and things to make sense. And I can be kind of chaotic sometimes, super type B, not very organized with physical things. So there's always a meltdown at some point during a move. But you know what? We're getting there. I like to think he's helping me become more physically organized.
Oh, if you move with somebody and there isn't a small meltdown along the way, did you really move? Like moving just brings out the worst in us for sure.
Are you even a real couple if you didn't have a moving meltdown? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of along those lines too. So basically what the gameplay is like in Unpacking is, so you get into a new scene. It's either a new like single room, like we said, or it's an apartment with multiple rooms. And you've got all the moving boxes, the cardboard boxes. So you open them up, you start pulling stuff out, and you pull out objects one at a time. You can rotate them, and then you pick where you want to put them in the room. There's usually empty bookshelves. There are closets for clothes and storage organizers and stuff like that. And so that's what you do. You pull stuff out of the boxes, you choose where they go, and you have to stick to a general like rule. Like kitchen stuff has to go in the kitchen. Bathroom stuff has to go in the bathroom. And within that, there are like rules too. You know, you can't leave your silverware on top of the stove or something like that. It has to go in the drawer. But there is some like creativity for decorating, especially with stuff that goes on shelves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you play this, you kind of said you're a little bit of a chaos elemental when you move in real life. Do you like skip between all the rooms or do you unpack one? Oh my God.
I actually like, it is funny because I've streamed this so often and people do have a hard time watching me stream it sometimes because I kind of have to give chat a warning, like, you're not going to like what you see if you're a certain type of person. So just be aware. But this is how I operate. And I think like I'll pull stuff out, go to the bathroom, go to the kitchen. I like to just run all over the place. And I think that I try to put the items in the most, I guess, creative areas or where you might not think to originally put them to see if I can, because there's a lot of creativity that the game gives you, but at the same time there are rules. So I like to see where I can put things. And actually, I'll hold on to that because I feel like it's a spoiler.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I have something exciting to say about achievements later.
Yeah, right. So for me, I'm a unpack one room at a time type of person. which is very much in line with how I operate in real life. In any situation where there are multiple things to be done, I will finish one thing, then do the next thing, then finish that, then do the next thing, etc. Same thing when I eat. I will eat one thing. I will eat the burger, then I will eat all the fries. I'm that kind of person as well.
That's so interesting. So I'm assuming in the game you were just one room at a time.
Yep. Yeah,
okay,
as much as I could. And sometimes I wouldn't even go to the other room to, like, say there's a bathroom thing in the kitchen box. I wouldn't go to the bathroom. I would put it on the floor. And then when I was done with the kitchen, I would pick it up and take it to the bathroom.
That is so wild. I feel like, okay, so obviously the game would not let this happen to me, but I think in real life, what would happen to me if I did not open the box and immediately put the bathroom thing in the bathroom, I fear that it would never make it there.
Right.
You know?
Just stay in the bed, stay in the kitchen or the bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to finish a level in Unpacking, you have to place all the objects, unpack all the boxes, place everything in acceptable places around the living space. Once that's done, you'll get like a star down in the corner, and you can kind of look over your work, and the character will kind of put a picture in their journal or their scrapbook or whatever. They'll write a little sentence about their new situation, and then you move on to the next time period, the next apartment, the next move. So I wanted to shout out a couple of things about that kind of process of unpacking. First of all, it's a pixel art game. It's an isometric perspective pixel art game. Every single object and all the living spaces too, and all the shelves and all of that stuff, the pixel art is really, really good. I love the pixel art, and you can rotate all the objects too. So like they're 3D modeled in that way, at least from those four perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who have the art credit, I want to shout them out: Angus Doolin, Ren Breyer, Michelle Whitehead, and Joseph Paul Silipo. Great work on the pixel art, making all these objects. And this is like one half of the formula, the way that the objects look, we'll say. It's really, really good. And so you will pull out, if you see screenshots of Unpacking, you'll see things that are fairly small. But you pull out these things and there is a good level of detail in these objects. So like you can pull out the thing and be like, oh, these are GameCube games. I can tell that these cases are video games, even though they're also DVD cases and stuff like that. You can look at like the way the book covers or the spines of the books look and kind of guess like, this looks like a big fantasy series or something like that this character might be reading. So the way that these objects look really helps tell that story, we'll say.
Totally. And I find myself really drawn to all the kitchen items and all the variety there. Like, yeah, the art detail is just so beautiful. It's just detailed enough, kind of like you're saying. Like, you can tell what it is. You can tell that we're getting nods to certain things, even certain types of media that already exists out there, which I love when games do that. It's so fun to try to be like, is that Jaws? Is that Donnie Darko? I just think that it's really fun. So just the right amount of detail to keep it fun for the player.
Yeah, I have not heard Donnie Darko in a very long time.
It's a great movie. Tears for Fears, one of my favorites.
I don't think I've watched that movie since high school. Yeah. And I watched it 400 times in high school.
Oh yeah, it's a high school. It's a particular person, you know. Some of us had to watch that a lot in high school.
Yep. I count myself among those people.
Same.
The other half of that formula, like I said, with the objects is it feels like every object and every possible surface that you're going to put the objects on has like Foley sound effects.
Yes.
So like I use the example of like you get an air freshener spray in the bathroom and you can put it on the back of the toilet lid and you will get a clink of a metal can on a ceramic lid and it sounds right. and all the times when you put stuff on wooden bookshelves, all the times. I think the dorm room has like a brick windowsill. When you put stuff on that, like the sounds all sound incredible when you are placing the objects.
They sound so good, and I think that they deserve their flowers for creating all of those sounds. And also, you get the sound and it's accurate even if the item does not belong in that place. So even if you put an item down, so I don't know if we've said this yet, but if you put an item in an incorrect place, there's sort of this red line outline that happens around it, but you're still going to get that sound effect, and it's going to be accurate to what that would actually sound like the metal spoons and forks on the metal sink. I love that sound. The sound of the magnets going on the fridge. It's just all so thoughtful, and I'm sure that it took so much time.
Yep. The sound of opening the cardboard boxes as well. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you open a lot of boxes in the game, and like they didn't skimp on that sound effect either. So it's just like a really great presentation. It's like a very simple presentation with this, you know, an isometric view, these, you know, this pixel art aesthetic. But within that, they've designed and apparently done sound design for like hundreds of objects throughout the game. Yeah. It's a lot. And even within like some of the later apartments, like it feels like it's like all new stuff. And so it's like, I mean, maybe you can use the same sound effects for similar materials across but like they at least had to draw all this new stuff and all these new objects and all that. So it's really good.
I think too, like just as a sound designer, because I sound design for live theatrical productions, that's what I have. My degree is in stage management and sound design for theater. I just think about how long it takes me to make one little sound effect, or if I need like the sound of a door opening, how I have to record that sound, and then I have to go, you know, in post-production and like adjust things. Like I just cannot imagine how long this took, and I don't know how large their team is, but I know it's pretty small. So yeah, I'm endlessly impressed with this, and I think that the sound effects are probably one of my favorite things in the game in terms of art. So it's worth playing just to hear those coasters hit the table.
Yep. It is really good for sure. So it is it's a pretty modest like package as far as how long the game is, as far as how many levels there are, but within those individual levels there's a lot of detail, and you know, they're trying to hit both sides of this, right? Like they're trying to tell this story, and they're trying to have this kind of cozy and satisfying unpacking organization puzzle game. Because again, like the objects are like on a grid. So like small objects will take one square, and then you have, you know, these designed spaces to put objects in, or maybe you open up drawers and they can fit so many things inside and stuff like that. So the puzzle of it is you have, and it's especially hard, for me, hardest in the kitchens, to make all this stuff fit, which kind of fits with my real apartment that I live in. Our kitchen is just full of shit. There's no counter space available for anything new in my house.
I feel like when someone in the relationship likes to cook or bake, because I feel like, you know, odds are there is somebody in the relationship like that. There's never enough space in the kitchen. But for me, in the game and also in real life, the most annoying thing is all of the clothes. I hate putting away the clothes because I just can't figure out the best way to organize them. And I go full chaos mode in the game. Like I just put skirts and pants and dresses all in different, you know, drawers and hang them up differently. But that's also my biggest struggle IRL is the laundry and figuring out where to put everything.
Well, early in the game, they have the similar solution to that I have, which is only own 6 or 7 shirts. And so you
smart.
You don't run out of space. Video viewers of the podcast may start to notice repeat shirts, and it's because I don't buy new shirts. So I don't have to worry about closet space. I tell myself that's the reason. But like later on, especially when you're like, spoiler, your character moves in with somebody, a partner, a romantic partner, and you suddenly have to share a closet, and that becomes a thing when you're trying to fit your stuff into their apartment. You can almost feel like the a little bit of tension, right? Like, can you make some fucking room for my jeans, you know?
Absolutely. Which we've all been through. We've all needed more. Well, maybe not, but I feel like it is a very relatable experience that this game is giving us. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Maybe it's not like the closet, but I mean, sharing kitchen space when two people move in together, or you move into somebody's apartment and you have stuff that you want to display. Maybe it's on the walls, maybe it's on the bookshelves, but it's already full. The walls are full of their stuff, the bookshelves are full of their stuff, but you want to display your stuff. And I think way back in the Florence episode of the podcast, Florence had a level just like this, where the couple moves in together and you have to decide whose stuff gets to go on the shelves. And Unpacking has a couple levels like that are really good. And if you read between the lines a little bit, you can read into the story and almost imagine these scenes with real people and not like your God hand placing the stuff all around.
True. I love that callback to Florence because that's one of my favorite games. And I would also consider it in the same category that I put Unpacking, which are games that I want to show people that are just getting into games for the first time. And so, yeah, I totally love that part in Florence too, when you're like trying to distribute everything evenly between the couple and set up the place to everybody's liking.
Yeah. This would be a good one for relatively new people to gaming. All you have to do, like I played with mouse and keyboard, so all you have to do is click to pick stuff up, and then it might even just be right click to rotate. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So it should be a pretty easy one for, new people in that way.
While we're on that really quickly, I can't say that I wholeheartedly recommend it for mobile just because I'm one of those people that I need things to be quite large to see them on a screen. So I had a hard time with how small the items were on mobile and like using my finger to move them around. I definitely prefer playing with a mouse. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You get that more kind of tactile control of the objects playing with a mouse for sure.
Totally.
Yep. Let's see. Other stuff about playing this. I think the music is really good. The music's credited to Jeff Van Dyke. The music is background music for the most part. Like, it's not the star of the show, but the music does a good job as your character's life takes turns, we'll say. The music really echoes what's going on in their life. And it uses a pretty simple palette. Like it's a lot of acoustic guitar, maybe some keyboards or some drums, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think occasionally it has that little synthy retro vibe going on, which, I don't know, really makes me feel, really resonates with the time period, I think, because I think you hear that more in the beginning. But I agree. I think the music is so nice, and I appreciate the mixing in this game because the music really gives the opportunity for the sound effects to shine. Yeah. But they also just blend so well together, and I find myself listening to this soundtrack a lot. And I think, so I teach like little kids about theater, and we do a sound design class, and they love the Unpacking music. The kids love the indie game music, and Unpacking is one of their favorites because it just kind of gets them thinking about what music can be and how music can support storytelling. So I always use this soundtrack as an example. So yeah, I think it's really pleasant, but just not too overpowering or anything for the game.
Yeah, and puzzle game music probably shouldn't be overpowering as you're trying to figure out, like, where the fuck am I going to put this frying pan, So yeah, I'm glad that it kind of hangs back.
And it's funny because I know this is a puzzle game, like objectively, but when I started playing it, I did not consider it a puzzle game or even think that it was a puzzle game. I was just like, oh, I'm just picking out where things go. But I think the more that I played it, the more that I realized, oh no, this is a puzzle game, and it is maybe for some people like difficult to figure out where all this stuff is going to go.
There are maybe some places in there where it's like not super obvious that you can put stuff there, but for the most part, I would actually be interested to see like a breakdown of how many squares we'll say, or how much volume does all of your stuff that has to go in a certain room take up versus how much available space is in that room? Like, I wonder how precise you have to be with the placement of all the stuff.
That is really interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about that. And I didn't even think about it as being on a grid, but you're totally right.
It's probably not that tough. I think if you were to see a breakdown, it's just like, as long as you kind of follow the general rules of where stuff should go.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty reasonable. Like, I like in the kitchen, for example, I've done this in apartments where I lived, where I just have like a really big pot that won't fit in a cupboard. So I just have it on the stove all the time. That's where it lives. And you can do that in Unpacking.
Yep, I've got one of those right now. Just a big pot that lives on the stove. It's not getting put away anywhere.
Yep, exactly. Anything else about, basically the non-spoiler part in Unpacking here? Gameplay, storytelling, anything like that worth bringing up before we start going into spoilers?
I think I'm good.
We do have a lot to talk about in the spoiler section as we go through the story here. So let's listen to a bit of music. Let's come back. We will do our kind of wrap up, our housekeeping, and then we'll get into spoilers here in a bit. In this kind of ending section of the non-spoiler portion of the podcast, we always like to kind of summarize our thoughts if we have stuff that needs summarized, any conclusions that we're coming to, but also answer the question, who would you recommend play Unpacking?
So I would recommend that, I guess first off, people who have never tried a quote-unquote cozy game, or people who usually dismiss them as farming sims with no depth. I think a farming sim can be really overwhelming. Like, it actually makes me laugh how a lot of people are like, oh, you want to play a game? Like, play Stardew Valley. It's like, no, that's going to be so overwhelming for you. So I feel like this is a perfect example of, a game that looks cozy and is cozy, but has a really great story to tell. So I'd recommend it for folks like that. And I would also recommend it to beginning gamers or people who are looking to get into indie games specifically. I think I was at that point in my life when I found this game, and look at me now. I've played so many games and I'm having a great time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree that this is one of those games that if you're familiar with using a mouse, then you can play this game. There is really nothing complex about how to play this, as opposed to so many games that you may think of as easy, but you have to be used to playing games on a keyboard or using a controller, which is definitely not a given thing for people who don't play video games very often. Controllers are like a huge trip up because they're pretty complex, and we kind of take that for granted. Unpacking can just be a mouse. You can like play it on an iPad or something. It would probably, with a bigger screen, it would probably be pretty good with an iPad there. So that's a great call there. And yeah, I would also echo the recommendation for people who would like a kind of cozy vibes type of game, but with a story, because make no mistake, this game has a story to tell, and we'll talk about it in the spoiler section. There are moments in the story where it will make you feel things, and that's not something that I expected when I first started playing this. So it's really hard to think of someone who I would not recommend play Unpacking. I just think it's a really elegant, really good game. So it's a pretty easy pitch for me personally here. I like how you you made me think maybe the classic cozy game maybe be Animal Crossing, but also Stardew Valley. And I just think of all the spreadsheets I've seen of people min-maxing Stardew Valley, where it's like, that doesn't look cozy at all. That looks like you're doing a job.
It's such hard work, and I think also the game it took me a solid 7 hours to start getting the hang of, just with the controls and everything. But similar to Unpacking, it does have incredible stories to tell, great characters and narrative. So yeah, I guess I just don't want people to overlook games as just cozy with no depth, because I think a lot of cozy games do have depth.
Right. Yeah. And you might judge Unpacking by the cover and just be like, that's just, it's just decorating. And it's most definitely not just decorating.
So much more.
Yeah. So pretty hearty recommendations from the both of us for Unpacking. And before we get into spoilers, we'll do our housekeeping here. We always start with the guest and what they do out there. So as I said at the top of the show, Kate is one of the hosts of the No Small Games podcast and also a streamer. So please tell people about the podcast and where they can find you.
Awesome. So you can find me pretty much anywhere online under the username Katerblossom, but my main form of content is podcasting. I've been co-hosting the No Small Games podcast for 2 years now with Emily Merritt, who is a specific egg online. And we actually met streaming on Twitch. We used to play Animal Crossing together and Phasmophobia. This is all the way back in 2021.
Two very different games.
I feel like we both sometimes can fit in this camp of like, I only play Animal Crossing and DBD. There's a lot of streamers that kind of are in those two buckets. But anyway, so yeah, No Small Games, we are an indie game recap and review podcast. So each episode we do a very deep dive on an indie game. We also do monthly indie game roundups where we cover indie game news as well as new releases. And we write articles for our website. We do listicle articles, but Emily also does reviews on games. So we do a lot together and we're having so much fun. And I think we have a special dynamic because Emily has been gaming her whole life and she has a master's degree in journalism, and I have the theater background, and I'm sort of newer at gaming. So together we have, I think, some unique perspectives. So yeah, we're having a great time. So check us out. We're No Small Games.
Yeah, absolutely. And people may have heard the No Small Games trailer at the end of some Tales from the Backlog episodes, but I will recommend people go check it out. It is a good show. You will probably hear about some indie games that you have either like maybe heard about but not tried, or sometimes in my case, not heard anything about. So it is valuable to get perspectives on those games that, maybe flying under the radar or something like that. And it's a really enjoyable show to listen to as well. So recommend that everyone checks it out. I will put links down in the show notes so that everyone can easily find the show. As I'm talking about myself for like the next minute or so, you can start clicking around with No Small Games.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. So for me, the best ways to support the show are, of course, rating and reviewing will help people find the show. It will boost it in the podcast algorithm. Same goes for likes and comments on YouTube. That will help people find the episode. You can also join the Discord server, which is a lively and very friendly place of people who love talking about video games. So I really love hanging out with the people in there. We would love to have you. If you'd like to join, there's an invite link in the show notes. You can also support the show monetarily on Patreon. Patreon.com/RealDaveJackson is the place. And all patrons will get the ability to vote in polls for games I do on the show. I do a bonus retro gaming series. There's a bunch of treats over on the Patreon. So if you want to support monetarily, that's the way to do it. And last but not least, I have another podcast called A Top 3 Podcast, where we do top 3 lists and we draft topics. We recast movies with terrible actors. That's a good time. So that's a comedy show. It's very different from this show. So you can go check that out as well. So that is a lot of stuff for the end of the non-spoiler section. So we are going to take a break. I'm going to catch my breath. And when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Unpacking. All right, before we get to spoilers for Unpacking, I have an announcement about a guest appearance I did that you can go listen to very soon, and we'll do the customary thank yous for the patrons. So if you're listening to this on March 19th, the day it comes out, tomorrow you can listen to me go on No Small Games. Today's guest is Kate from No Small Games, and I am on No Small Games on the 20th talking about mouthwashing. It's a long discussion about a game with a lot to talk about, so if you're in the mood for more discussion about mouthwashing, please go check that episode out. It comes out tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe to No Small Games so you won't miss it. And I would like to do the customary thank yous. Thank you to the patrons who help support the show. Big shout out in particular to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, David Stecco, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Ashton Ruby, and many more. Thank you all for your support. It means the world to me. If anyone listening would like to do the same and join up over at patreon.com/realdavejackson, that would be greatly appreciated. And you'll get some treats too. It's a two-way affair. With that being said, we'll get back to full spoilers for Unpacking. All right, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Unpacking. And unlike most episodes, this is going to be a linear walk through the story. Unpacking's presentation just kind of asks us to do it this way, so that's how we're going to do it. That being said, I'm not going to filter spoilers about things that might happen late in the game, so I'm still putting the full spoiler warning out there. If you don't want to be spoiled at all for Unpacking, please go play the game and come back. We will go linearly through the story, though, as we kind of talk about the different living spaces and the different situations that our main character finds herself in. So, starting back in that first apartment, that was 1997, I want to say. So not the first apartment, the first bedroom, as your character moves into their own bedroom for the first time. So whether they'd been sharing it with a sibling or whether they'd been sharing it with their parents, who knows what their living situation was like before that. It's a great moment, I'm sure, for someone to have their first bedroom for the first time like that. I always had my own room because our house had as many bedrooms as we had children. So I always had my own room. No, that's not true. My brother and I had bunk beds for a while, but I think that's because we wanted to do it that way when we were little kids.
Are you the oldest, or how many siblings?
I have a brother. He's 4 years younger than me.
Okay, so I'm also the oldest, and I'm actually the oldest of, I have twin sisters that are twins, and they had bunk beds and they shared a room, and I really wanted to actually have a roommate, but I was forced to have my own room because the twins obviously have to be together, but I just thought that it was weird that I felt that way, but I never wanted to have my own room until I got older. When I was younger, I wanted to have my own bunk bed with a roommate.
Interesting. I had always, I've heard from other friends and stuff that, like, when they were younger, they had to share a room with their siblings or something like that. Maybe parents moved to a bigger house and then suddenly you have your own room and it's like this awesome thing. And that's how our character feels about it in this game. Yeah.
And I feel like there was something you said earlier about, I don't even remember what it was, but it reminded me how in this room specifically, in her first room, she has like so many things that could tell us what she's interested in, which I feel like is really common for children. Like, she's kind of all over the place. Like, she's got her stuffed animals, she's got a soccer ball, board games. I don't know if she has music yet, like a music player, but she's got pens and pencils and coloring stuff. She's kind of all over the place, which I feel like is very reflective of some people's childhood experiences where they're just kind of trying to figure out who they are and what they like.
Yeah, whether it's like you like all that stuff at the same time, or thinking back to my childhood, I definitely went through phases where I would be like, I'm really obsessed with like drawing for a month. And then I'm obsessed with action figures for 6 months. And then after that, I'm done with action figures because I got a Game Boy. And so, this character's bedroom is definitely reflective of at least a variety of tastes over time. But it could be, obvious little kids have the capacity to like more than one thing at one time. It's personally, true. When I was a kid, I went through like huge obsession phases with stuff.
Totally. And I guess it's true, like, as we get older, we have to have jobs and then we don't have time to have as many hobbies. But yeah, I feel like I jumped around a lot when I was younger until I found theater, but I also like played soccer and I wanted to be in the band. And I don't know, I feel like we do have we just have more time to figure out what we're interested in.
Yeah, some of us get older and start podcasts, and then we run out of free time for all the other stuff we might be doing.
Yes, and then we're like, what have we done? But it's fun. We're happy to be here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let's see. Anything else about that first bedroom?
No, I just wanted to point out that stood out to me, like just now for the first time, that she's got a bunch of random stuff. And I think she has a dreidel in her room.
Yeah, she does.
So, yeah, that's kind of already telling us something about her.
Yep, the dreidel goes with you throughout the game. There's a menorah, I think, later in the game, too. So you definitely see something about her culture, for sure.
Yeah.
The dorm room, I also didn't write any notes about that. I think I just forgot to write notes about it, but it is kind of cool to see a lot of those childhood possessions make the trip to college with your character, including the Game Boy, including the stuffed pig, which we'll keep talking about as we go through the story. But it did kind of remind me, I believe that I did take some of those sentimental things with me to college. Like, I think I took my comforter from my bed, because it was just like, it's my comforter and my pillow. Like this is what's comfortable to me. So I take that with me in one of the most uncomfortable transitions, I would say, to that point in my life, right?
That's so interesting. I did not think about what I brought with me when I moved into dorms, because my college, when I was a freshman, was like 4 hours away from my house. So I feel like my parents dropped me off, and it was probably really dramatic. But I think I did have a pillow, and I'm almost positive that I had an iPod of some whatever generation we were in 2010, some version of an iPod.
Yeah, thinking back on that, I just remember coordinating with my roommates before we moved in to make sure that someone brought a TV and
Smart.
that we knew which video game consoles were going to be in the room. One of my roommates brought a PS2, and one of my roommates brought his PC, and he played Diablo 2 the entire school year. So
Bad grades.
I think he did okay, but he played a lot of Diablo, and I had a lot of fun watching him play Diablo. But yeah, the PS2 and the TV, we had to make sure that was sorted out. And so
that's so funny. You just reminded me that when I was a freshman, one of my friends had a N64, and we always play Pokemon Stadium, I think it was. Like, we would drink and just play Pokemon Stadium. It was so fun. I'm like, why don't we do that anymore?
Yeah. We still could drink and play Pokemon Stadium.
We could. What's stopping us?
We have the technology. Yeah. I think we played a lot of Pokemon Stadium, but that was my freshman year in college, was right when Guitar Hero kicked off.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was beer and Guitar Hero. That was the thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is the ultimate social game at that time. So 2007 is the next move. And this is when your character moves into their first, quote, real apartment out of a dorm room. And I think it's like safe to assume they're moving in with college roommates or college friends or something like that. I know that's probably how, unless you move away, that's probably how it works for a lot of people. That's how it worked for me. So yeah, the 2007 apartment. What sticks out to you about 2007?
I feel like this is the moment where we're starting to get a clearer picture of like who she is and who she's becoming, what her interests are. I noticed a lot of like gaming adjacent things. I like some D&D, some dice, video games, board games. And then it seems like her roommates are also pretty, I guess you could say, nerdy in their own right. Maybe a cosplayer. I think I wrote that the roommate was possibly studying costume design, but I feel like a cosplayer makes more sense. But it seems like, this seems like a harmonious place for her, honestly. It feels like she maybe has some friends and roommates that share her interests.
Yeah, because you can tell as your character gets older that she's really interested in art. And then whoever she's moving in with is interested in, clothing design, fashion in some way. Like, there's a dress on a mannequin, there's a sewing machine, there's a lot of stuff like that. I noticed in this apartment more, quote, mature hobby stuff around. Some of the books look like they're like self-help books. There's a climbing powder bag and climbing shoes in there, which is definitely not like a little kid hobby, for most kids anyway. And I noted in here also, you cannot move the other people's stuff. When you move in, you're moving into an established place and you have to fit your stuff around their stuff, which I thinking back, I don't think I've ever moved into an apartment or something where someone was already living. When I moved in with who's now my wife, we moved into a new place together. So I didn't like move into her place and then, or anything like that. So this is, we talked about it with the Florence example, but it's an interesting type of thing to imagine where you're like, trying to fit in the house. So like, you're not going to take stuff out of the way. You're just going to like take space where you can find it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I feel like, so I didn't notice the more mature themed books, but you're totally right. And I'm also just noticing now in the screenshot that there is that hot water bottle on the couch. And I don't know if that's our characters or somebody else's. I don't remember if you can move that item, but we do have one like in the next scene level as well. So that was just something I just noticed for the first time. But yeah, I've been in an experience before, or I've had an experience before where I've moved into a house where people are already established. It is very strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, but hopefully our main character is feeling like content here, just based on the kind of roommates these people seem to be.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope so. You would hope that they're moving in with people, friends from college or something like that. So
yeah,
I think I wrote down that it was probably 2 roommates, and I guessed that based on how many towels are hanging in the bathroom. So
there's like
maybe
3 hanging, right?
I think once you put yours there, I think there's 3.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was thinking it was there were 2 as well. And there's the I noticed actually just last night for the first time I noticed the All Blacks New Zealand like rugby flag. So that was interesting for me to catch at this point on my like 5th playthrough or whatever.
Yeah. Are the developers from that region? I want to say that
I feel like they probably are. I don't know. I don't know though.
Yeah, I should have looked it up, but it perhaps, or I mean, anyone can be a fan of a sport. Rugby is a pretty cool sport. My one of my roommates in college was a rugby player, and he'd come home bloody a lot of times in the evenings from practice.
So dangerous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's 2007. Oh, and if you're keeping track at home of the video games in the house, we have a Game Boy Advance that your character has. They moved on from the Game Boy Pocket, and what looks like perhaps a Wii down there. No, that's not a Wii. The controllers look like PlayStation controllers.
Yeah, I was going to say like PlayStation something.
Maybe a PS2 or something like that in 2007. Maybe early PS3. I don't remember when that came out. I didn't have one. So 2010 is a big move for our character. 2010 is when your character moves in with who I'm assuming is a boyfriend based on the kind of masculine coding for everything in the house and the colors in the house and everything like that. There is like speakers. There's a pet rhinoceros beetle. The note that I had only thought about because my wife makes fun of me. The clothing is all black, light blue, and gray. Yeah. Which is, that's my wardrobe right there. I'm wearing a gray shirt right now. There's no trash can in the bathroom also, which feels very like a dude living by himself.
Totally.
Yeah. So you're moving in with a boyfriend.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I feel like this is the moment in the game where you're like, oh, I'm really paying attention now. Like something feels musically, visually, like things feel so different for the first time, I think.
It's interesting because this game, I think it gives off 2 kind of storytelling things. One of them is like the most famous part from the game, when you take your college diploma to your house before, your apartment with your roommates or whatever, and you proudly place it on your wall, right? And then in this game, in this apartment, you can't do that. There is no space for your diploma. The only place the game will accept it is under the bed. Because that's apparently the guy is not going to give up any wall space for your diploma or any other like prominent or more suitable place for a framed diploma than literally under the bed.
And that hurts. Like that was a moment, and I know that's why it is one of the most popular moments in the game that so many people have such a strong reaction to. Like no matter who they are, I think everyone's kind of like, that's fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and some of us, I think, sadly can really relate to this sort of thing. I also think it's something that it made me think of was, I think a lot of times, you know, I feel like women's accomplishments, or if they're a particularly bright person, sometimes that can be hard for somebody else in their relationship, which is not fair. And I think for that reason, a lot of times, like, their accomplishments can go uncelebrated or they can become smaller. And I think that that can kind of, like, you know, cross gender lines a lot too. Like, a lot of people have maybe felt that way in a relationship before, no matter what their experience or background is, where maybe they've felt small or silenced even. So the fact that this game is showing that narrative to us in such a simple way, where it's like, the degree has to go under the bed, there's no other place it's going to go, it really packs a punch, but it's such a simple concept, you know?
Yeah. It is a really simple way to kind of just get that in your head that this might be a source of contention in the relationship. Like, maybe not the diploma per se, but like, what does it mean that the diploma has to go under the bed, and like what this guy values in his partner or something like that. And I think that this might be one of the more famous story moments in the game, because it is the first time that the game really makes it a point with one of the objects like this. It feels like the developers, this is the first time in the game where the developers are like, pay attention to this. We have a story to tell, and we're going to tell it in a very, like a controlling way, we'll say. Like, this is the way this story goes.
Yeah.
This is not full creativity for decorating. This is the story of this character. And this is something that our character had to deal with here. I thought it was interesting after this scene, 'cause like, so your character, when you finish putting all this stuff, they put a picture in their scrapbook, they write a little sentence, and it's like, it's meant to be like their move-in day scrapbook, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the scrapbook description, caption for this apartment is, at least for me, not Dark Star playthrough. The caption is, "Not all coffee is instant. Who knew?" So it's like she moved in, and this relationship is kind of like broadening her horizons in some ways too. Like, it wasn't a shit show right away.
Right.
This was like, oh, like this, you know, this guy makes nice coffee and like stuff like, there's maybe superficial things that you might be attracted to somebody for, like, before you live together, basically. I always got the relationship advice to live with someone before you decide that you want to marry them. And my wife and I lived together before we got married, which is not the way things work in Korea traditionally. But it was a thing that both of us felt really strongly about. And I guess we're glad that our character made that choice too.
Totally. That's a good point too. Like, maybe for our character, there were no signs of like how this could end up for her, because, you know, she obviously liked him enough to move in with him.
Yeah.
And so maybe things were good until then. And so, yeah, that I didn't really think about that before. I also, the first time I played this, I put the ukulele under the bed too, because I thought that it also had to go there, and I couldn't find another place for it. It was actually just last night that I learned that that item doesn't also have to go under the bed, because the ukulele, I think it is ours because we move it and it comes with us to the next place. But I don't remember if we get the ukulele before this moment. Do you remember?
I don't remember if it's there in the previous place or not, but it would be like a real double whammy. It's like your diploma, aka your accomplishments, that goes under the bed. That's not important. And the ukulele, aka your hobbies, those also go under the bed because it's not important.
Yeah, and I'm like, what does this say about me? Because I put it under the bed after the degree went under there. So, but you don't actually have to put that under there. It's just the degree that has to go under the bed. But still, it is a moment that packs a punch for sure.
Yeah. Some other things that I noticed in this apartment, the toothbrush mug that goes in the bathroom that you can put your toothbrushes in, it's the same mug that you've had your whole life. And it's now chipped and a little bit broken, barely hanging on, but it's still there. And that feels real to me because I also had a mug that was only for toothbrushes for basically since I left my parents' house until I moved overseas. So almost 20 years. I took that same mug.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
What was it about the mug? Like, what does it look like?
It's just a regular ass mug. It's just like a blue mug or something like that. But it was like, it's not something, it wasn't like a sentimental, well, I guess it was because I always took it with me, but it was just like, this is the toothbrush mug. So when I move, I need a new mug to put my toothbrushes in. Might as well take this one, you know?
And then maybe that item does become sentimental to you just based on the fact that how long you've had it around and used it for the same thing.
Yeah. I think when I threw it away, taps played somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I feel like that is a really long time to carry around. I'm impressed. I think that's cool.
I'm surprised I didn't break it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
One of the other big struggles, other than the diploma in this level, is trying to fit your clothes in this guy's closet.
Yes.
And he has 2 sock drawers, which seems excessive.
Unheard of. I've always only had a half of a drawer for my socks.
Exactly. Yeah. How many socks does one person need? And if you have like special use socks, you know, hiking socks or whatever, like those don't have to go with the everyday socks. Those can go somewhere else, you know?
Definitely. I'm also the kind of person that just finds socks around, and I don't ever wear matching socks, but not by choice, just because like that's how my life goes. But yeah, he does this man does take up a lot of space with the clothes and doesn't make a lot of room for you. So actually like putting the clothing away in this level was the most infuriating for me. It was really hard.
Yep. It's a challenge for sure. And then one of the other things, so like it's kind of the same as the last apartment when you move in with the roommates and you're trying to like fit your stuff in the spaces between their stuff, right? Mm-hmm. When you're moving into this apartment, it somehow feels just a little bit worse when you're doing it. I think one of the reasons is that you have all this like colorful, sentimental stuff, maybe stuff you brought from when you were a kid or, you know, when you were in your college dorm or something like that. You have all this stuff and all your colorful clothes and stuff like that. And this guy's apartment is like, did you watch How I Met Your Mother?
Yes.
It's like Barney Stinson's apartment.
True.
A little bit. Like the same color palette. It's all like black and gray and white, other than, you know, the guitar and the rhinoceros beetle and stuff like that. And, you know, it feels like it feels like Barney Stinson's apartment. And so putting your stuff that's like not quite as nice or doesn't like fit the vibe in there, it just feels a little bit worse.
And your stuff has so much more character and warmth and color. So just every action that you're taking in this level and every time you place an item, it's almost reinforced to you, the player, that like, this is not where I belong. Like, this is not for me. And I feel like our main character, you know, we associate these things with her warmth and color. And I feel like wood is also a theme, like the color and the texture of wood is really prevalent when we're really focused in on our main character and her environment. So to come to this place, like the glass coffee table is what really gets me in this one. I do not like looking at it. I do not feel comfortable perceiving it. So there are just so many items. There's like weights. There's a stack of like weights. There's also like a bar situation, like fancy little cups and a decanter. Not that these items are bad. It's just that they don't fit with the vibe that we've been going with throughout the game so far.
And I mean, obviously these 2 characters are incompatible because this relationship doesn't last. But you know, there seem to be a lot of reasons why this relationship didn't last very long, right? So you have, you know, with the diploma and, you know, not making room in the closet for your clothes and stuff like that, you have like that vibe that you're not being valued equally, we'll say, as the guy in the apartment. But there is also that kind of personality mismatch, I guess, that you can just tell by the mismatch in stuff. In like your character's stuff, you know, you have all of your art supplies and stuff like that. And there's no room for art in this apartment, you know? So there's incompatibility on like several levels here, which, it doesn't last very long.
And there's actually like That's a good point. There's not even room for you to exist here. There is no room for our main character to exist or to thrive. There is no desk. There's no, like, it's very small. And it's also in a city, which I find interesting. Like, the blinds are kind of up and there's these, like, big glass windows and you can see a cityscape. So I wonder if her other environments that she's used to being in are maybe more suburban or rural. Everything about this is just screaming, like, get out.
All right, so after the apartment with the boyfriend, the next level is 2012. 2 years later, you are back in your childhood bedroom. So we can guess how that relationship ended.
Yeah.
And we can guess what kind of, we'll say what kind of situation your character found themselves in when that relationship ended and they didn't have another place to go to. They go to the only place they can, I suppose, which is their childhood bedroom.
Yeah, this is a very familiar feeling. I think a lot of us have been there where it's like relationship ends, we're back home, and it's not a great time for the self-esteem, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure, yeah. So I haven't been in that particular situation with moving back home after, a breakup or something, but I have moved back home in between apartments for a few months, or like most recently when I moved back from Korea and didn't have a job in the US. My wife and I lived with my parents for a few months. And so we lived in my childhood house, and it wasn't the same as in Unpacking here, where like the childhood bedroom is like mostly unchanged from when they were a kid. Like the loft bed is gone, but there's still a bunch of like the childhood stuff is still in there, like the stuffed animals and stuff like that. A lot of that is still there. So you can just tell, like, it might be comfortable maybe to be back at home for a short amount of time, but you can tell like this isn't where you want to be,
Yeah.
You just have to, and you can really feel it as you start to unpack your adult things into your childhood bedroom. And it's like a real mismatch with like, the little kid framed things that are up on the wall. And then you're like, here's my sewing machine and stuff like that. So it's a weird vibe to say the least.
Totally. It's like a whole different version of there's no room for me here, but it's like I've outgrown this, but my stuff is still here. But at least in this level, we do get to frame our degree and have it on the wall.
Yes. You can like triumphantly place it on the wall. Like, eat shit, motherfucker. It's up on the wall now.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing that I thought was funny, there is a picture of your character with that X. You can put up on the bulletin board. You can stick a thumbtack through his face.
Yes, it's so satisfying.
The feeling I got in this childhood bedroom kind of revisit level is that this room felt a lot bigger in the first level. The first time you decorated it, it felt a lot bigger. And that is something I've felt in my parents have lived in the same house since I was born. So like going back to that house, it feels so small compared to when I was a kid.
That is such a good point. I didn't think about that, but yeah, same for me. Like, my parents live in the same house that I was born in, and I was just there for Thanksgiving, and I had to record 2 podcasts and do a stream while I was there, and I was like, there's literally no room for me to like even turn my body.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting here is that the bedroom, it's still a bedroom, we'll say.
Yeah.
My childhood bedroom is not a bedroom anymore.
Oh.
My parents have repurposed it for, their hobbies and their, office and stuff like that. There is a guest room that we stay in when we go there, but like the room that I look at that was my childhood room is not a bedroom anymore. So it's not exactly the same as this, but that feeling is there. Like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I thought my house was massive. And then
Yeah.
I go back and I'm like, it's like you said, like, even when we moved back from Korea and we have like, 4 suitcases and that's everything we own, it was still hard to make all that stuff fit in the guest room. So this is one of the levels where I really empathized with the character here. Just trying to like you said, just squeeze into this place that's so much smaller than it used to be.
And we know that it's a transition period for her. Like, we know this isn't permanent, but still, even temporarily being in a place like this can be really stressful. Not only like where are we going to put our items, but, stuff about family comes up. And so I just imagine like, that's hard already going through a breakup, but then you're with your family and they probably have all sorts of things to say about it and they want to help you, but maybe they're not actually being supportive in the ways that you need. So yeah, it's a little bit chaotic. Like, she's got her ukulele on the desk. Things just don't really fit. You've got to put things under the bed. But yeah, at least you do have that moment where you can kind of, put that what are they called? Tack through your ex's face, through the photo.
Yeah. The music is really sad in this level too. I took note of the music. This might be the only level where I like specifically was like, oh, the music's dark in this. So you can tell the kind of emotional state that your character's in. But as you're putting the stuff in the room, it might not fit perfectly. Like when I did it, I just had stacks of books on the little dresser in front of the window. And it was because I couldn't find anywhere else for them.
Yeah.
So you have the feeling like this isn't my place. My stuff doesn't fit here, but like, I'm going to try to make the best of it, the best I can. The pig stuffed the stuffed pig goes back on the bed. I'll set my Game Boy I think it's a DS at this point.
Yeah.
I'll set my DS up here. I'll set my drawing supplies up. This is my space. We'll make the best of it, but it's clearly not where you want to be, like you said.
At least we have a desk here, though, where we didn't in the boyfriend's house.
Right. You can only imagine like where your character is trying to do her work.
Yeah.
Or, a hobby that later becomes work in that place. Yeah. One thing I just noticed as you mentioned things under the bed, I always put the yoga mat and the dumbbells under the bed in every single apartment.
Same.
It's like we get those things and we tell ourselves like, yeah, we're going to do this. And then you put it under the bed and then like 2 years later, your dog's toy goes under the bed and you look and you're like, oh, that's where those are. Okay.
You're like, oh, I had good intentions. I had goals.
Yeah. Always good intentions. Yeah. But yep. Next is 2013. So like you said, it's a very temporary thing. 2013, your character is back out on their own in a nice new place. The music is super upbeat. And this place is, I like how you've had pretty much like 3 places in a row where you couldn't spread your wings with all your stuff.
Yeah.
You moved in with roommates, then moved in with boyfriend, then moved into your childhood bedroom. Now your character has their own, an entire place to themselves. And you can finally just like comfortably place all of your stuff everywhere. And it's like a really great feeling. Like, I think that this is a really effective part for just showing how happy and excited, optimistic your character must be going into this place. It's a really positive change in their life.
Yeah, and it's so bright and colorful. We've got some beautiful exposed brick in the apartment. And I don't know, I just feel like we're getting to see more of her than we've ever had and what she's interested in. And I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the first time we're maybe seeing these like doodles of characters that will eventually be part of a book that we write. I'm noticing so many new things in this level that are really actually telling me that this person has maybe found herself or is starting to find herself.
Yeah. And like that could be if you're putting together like the story of their life, like after a breakup and you have to move back in with your parents, like there's probably a little bit of soul searching and trying to figure out like, what's my next move? Like what can I do? And you're right. Like your character, it looks like they figured something out because they end up being a children's storybook author, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely, I mean, there's doodles of like a little family of pigs and stuff like that. I just put together that your character is taking the stuffed pig with them the whole time, and then they're doodling pigs. So that's
Yeah.
super cute. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like all kinds of animals. They also have a drawing of a duck, which ducks are also a theme in this with like the stuffed animals, little
Mm.
ducks and chickens. She has those stuffed animals as well. So yeah, this is probably my favorite level to play, honestly. Like I know the last one is great, but this is the one where I'm like, it's all about me right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's just it's a cool feeling, like both in real life when you move into your own place, and I mean you have full control over everything in the apartment, where everything goes, and I want this room to be this, stuff like that. It's always a great feeling, and coming off of what those levels before were like, it's even better in here. I noticed three things, we'll say. Number one, we've moved on to the Wii as far as the video game consoles go in this apartment. The other thing, your characters started a collection of these collectible chicks with like a mother hen. And in the subsequent apartments, there's always more and more of these things. So I like an ongoing collection in the stuff. And then the last thing I noticed is there's a walking stick in here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, and I think, like, I didn't even really think that deeply about the walking stick the first time that I played, but I am just wondering because back in the level where she has roommates, there's that, like, rock climbing bag of stuff, and then she doesn't have that anymore, but then she has, like, the hot water bottle, and then now she has a walking stick, so I'm wondering if, like, she might be like disabled or like ill in some way, and like when that happened I haven't quite figured out, or if that's always been the case. So it really makes you like think like what her story is based on like now that she has this walking stick.
Yeah, it's a good point about the climbing gear. I guess I did notice that it wasn't there, but I hadn't put those two together. So I mean, it's not hard to imagine why how you could hurt your legs climbing. For sure.
Totally. Yeah, and like the game doesn't give you 100% answers to anything, which is what is so cool about it, because you can kind of like take away your own story from this, but they still are giving you a lot of story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, with the walking stick, and then with the next apartment also, it's something where the game just like, this is their stuff, and it's obviously a part of their story, but like it's not like there isn't a whole bunch of other stuff that would like say like we're gonna like really make this a big point in the story. It's just kind of like a matter of fact thing about their possessions, and like we've been saying, like what their possessions say about their life and their lifestyle and stuff like that. So you see that, and then in the next apartment, you see who's moving in with your apartment or your character, and you're just like, okay, this is their story. And to the game's credit, none of this is portrayed as if it's like this big thing. I would argue that none of this is portrayed in a way that is as like emphasized as the diploma going under the bed. That feels like the only time in the game where the storytellers said, we have to have you notice this.
Yeah.
Everything else is just kind of like, hey, if you notice it, it's there. Some things are easier to notice than others, but that diploma felt like the only thing where they held your hand, we'll say, through experiencing the story.
I would totally agree with that, and I feel like that, I don't know, they do such a good job at like representing people in this game without making it a really huge deal, or without making it be like, this is the plot of the game, but simply like letting those folks be represented, and even having like a nice happy story attached to, people who can sometimes struggle in a lot of ways. Like I think it's just nice to have this representation in like a happy way where it's not the whole like problematic point of the plot.
Right. Well, if you think about your stuff in real life, or I think about my stuff, or just think about how your character views themselves, none of these things are out of the ordinary things that like need to be emphasized, right? It is their life, and their life is the way it is. So It's a good way for them to tell this story, but not, shove stuff in your face to just be like, see, do you get it? Except for the diploma. That was the only time.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah. One of the other things that I noticed about the stuff that your character collects as they go, which kind of tells their story, is travel souvenirs. And there are more and more of them as you go through the game. So I forget where it started, like where they first showed up, but at some point it's pretty obvious your character took a trip through Europe, Western Europe. There's a UK double-decker bus. There's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There's the Eiffel Tower. That's what that's called. Little figurines of those things. And as you play, there are more and more things that might be travel souvenirs that show up. So you learn about what your character likes to do in their free time, again, just by seeing those things.
Yeah, and I think the double-decker bus actually appears in the very first level. If not, it's definitely in the one after that. So it is fun to see this collection grow over time because the physical objects really can represent like how time is passing, I think. And I love how the little souvenirs do that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you collect anything when you travel places?
That's a great question. I don't. I feel like the only things that I really collect are more like music, because music is so important to me. So I'll collect like a playlist of songs that I listened to when I lived in Spain for a summer, and I'll go back and like revisit that, or like a playlist of songs that I had when I was in college. So I feel like I'm more attached to sounds and music than I am to like physical things. But I do really like to travel. So yeah, I feel like I'm always in some sort of mood when I travel, and I want my listening to reflect that. What about you?
Gotcha. That's cool. A playlist is a cool idea for sure. I collect fridge magnets when I travel places. So kind of along the lines of this character here, like if we were doing my apartments in Unpacking, there would just be more and more fridge magnets as the years pass. Yeah.
I love the idea of a covered fridge. One of my gripes with the modern fridge, like the modern energy efficient ones, is they don't really have places where you can put magnets on the front.
Yeah. Our fridge here at my house, the front is not magnetic. And so if you want to stick stuff, it has to go on the side, and that's where the spice rack is. It's a whole fucking thing. So long story short, my magnets are not on the fridge, but I still have them.
We got to get you a mini fridge.
Yeah. Give me a 1980s refrigerator so I can finally use these magnets.
Amazing.
Next is 2015. So that is 2 years later, and you're not moving. You're staying in the same house, but somebody is moving in with you. So you're going to help unpack this new stuff. And I noticed early on, they're bringing in plants and other things that like make this place just feel warm as they move in. And eventually you learn, and not that not that it has to be like this, but you learn that it's a woman moving in with you and that you're sharing a bedroom. So your character has learned something about herself through these years.
It's such a good surprise. I think that it's so delicately told to us in a way that, like you were saying earlier, not a huge deal, but just like really pleasant and cool.
Yeah, it is. And like you can tell through the stuff that they're bringing, through the music, that this is good. This is a good move that is happening right here. And one other thing I thought was cool was, so you designed this house 2 years ago, and it mostly saves your designs. When you go from that first level to this new level, it will keep a lot of your stuff in the same places. And I mean, I don't know about you, I am not a redecorator. So this would be like mine. I like this room that I'm podcasting in. This has been my podcasting gaming room since we moved into this house. And I have not changed anything about this room since like the first week we lived here. So this felt really good to me to just be like, things are settled, you know? I don't need to move stuff. I like things the way they are. And our character feels the same way too. And it's like you've gone through a bunch of moves and a pretty like unstable sequence of years, I think it's safe to say, with this character. And so finally they're staying in the same house. Everything looks cool. The house looks really cozy and nice. And then someone is moving in. A good romantic partner is moving in, and they're bringing a bunch of cool stuff that's like just enhancing this warm vibe of this house.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I feel like I am the kind of person that moves stuff around a little bit, but it's interesting because, it's a really cool time for me to revisit this game because like home and like place have been such a complicated thing for me these past 4 years because, I'm building my own house and I've been building it for 4 years. In the meantime, have been living with my in-laws in a tiny little mother-in-law apartment where all my stuff is in a storage unit and has been since 2020. So it I think people having their own place where they feel safe and comfortable and are able to express themselves and have their things that are important to them that bring them comfort is so important. And so that I'm really happy that our main character is getting this opportunity to have someone come into her life where she can almost like just add to the things that already make this place great. And it's very compatible. And like you were saying, warm, and just feels good to have these new things here. It just fits together. So yeah, I'm happy that this level is all about, I think, a harmonious connection and like creating a home together.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of reinforces that is the toothbrush mug is replaced with a newer one. And so there's other examples of this too, but I'm apparently the toothbrush mug guy, so I noticed that.
You're the expert on this situation.
Yeah, exactly. So this is in contrast with that guy's apartment where there was like no compromise being made on the stuff, right? And then in this one, it maybe your character learned something from that situation. Maybe it was always their personality the whole time to do it this way, but I think you said like you're making a home together. It's not she's going to come live in your house with you.
Yeah. It's a collaborative process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And her boxes so also this is the first time you get to touch somebody else's items, right? And things. So that's also symbolizing to us that this is like a really good harmonious connection moment. And I think it's really exciting to be able to move around items that aren't ours as the player for the first time. So yeah, this is it's a great level. It's really fun to play.
Yeah. The boxes are different. They look weird. It's like
the boxes and they're like organized and packed appropriately and neatly, which maybe we've grown a little bit, but also maybe our new partner has like helped us to, rein in the chaos a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing about this apartment that I noticed is, and this might be the realest thing in the entire game, it is the box of mixed wires that is never touched but moves wherever you go. I have it's down under my shelf right behind me is my it's a bag because I've moved a lot of times with it. But it is my bag of miscellaneous wires, and your character has one too, and it makes the move with them. Like you pull it out of the box, a little like storage container of miscellaneous wires that probably don't go to anything that you own anymore, but you still have those wires and you will not throw them away.
I have my tote bag of pointless wires. I also feel like millennials have this issue where like we can't throw the boxes away of like that expensive things came in. Like I can't throw away my Steam Deck box or my iPhone box or my laptop box. Like what if I need it even though I'm going to get a new one 5 years later, So I don't know what that is, but just something that I think is funny. But I also have a bag full of wires that I don't need.
Yep. Wires and cords. Yeah.
Your emotional support wires and cords.
Exactly. I might need a component to different component wire when nothing I own uses components anymore.
You never know.
And you just reminded me that my basement is full of boxes from products, not moving boxes, TV box and KitchenAid mixer box and stuff. It's all down in the basement, empty boxes. because we might move again. We might need it.
You never know.
What better to move those expensive things than the box they came in?
So true.
So, all right. So that was 2015. We have one more level, and this is 2018, and you're moving into a new house. And so you've lived together with this partner for 3 years, and you're moving up to a new house, upgrading. This new house is much bigger, and this house has 2 major life events that you can see in the difference between your stuff in the previous house and your stuff now. The first one is that your character has become successful in their career. So
Yay.
one of the rooms in your new house is an art studio, and it has a bunch of trophies and a bunch of copies of a book that they've, they bought a house. They must have done pretty well with the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've got trophies. They've got a bunch of copies of their book. And I don't know. Any authors listening to this can maybe confirm if they just have like boxes of their own books around. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they have a wrist brace, like a carpal tunnel brace, which feels very real to me too. As you get older and do a bunch of stuff with your hands, even if it's just playing video games, people who watch my streams may see me with a wrist brace on when I use a controller. And so seeing the brace in this, I was like, yeah, they get it.
I need to get myself one of those because as a sort of newer gamer, I'm starting to play like platformers for the first time in games that have combat. And I notice I go so hard on the controller. Like I'm like, I cannot physically relax. Like I have to press really, really hard, but I'm trying to stop.
Got to keep your wrists straight. And that's what the brace helps with.
Okay, good to know.
Because my natural controller position is like with my hands bent upwards, like towards my chest, which is not healthy. So
good to know.
When I got the new Super Smash Brothers game for Switch, all those years ago, I played it so much that like my wrist would get like the pins and needles, or my hand would get pins and needles, and I like couldn't game for a couple weeks on doctor's orders. They're like, hey, you're gonna fuck your wrist up, like chill. And then I got the brace, everything's cool now. But yeah, all that to say, this is an artist, someone who uses their hands a lot. And it feels very real to be like, oh yeah, they're getting older. They probably have carpal tunnel problems now.
Yeah, they're probably in their like early 30s. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. So successful career, that's a good thing. We've kind of taken that journey along with them as they, like you pointed out, they went from maybe conception of these characters, maybe storylines, doodles, things like that. Now we have published books in the house. Yeah. And then the other thing is they're setting up a baby's room in the house. And this is, it's just super heartwarming at the end of this journey that you've gone on with the character. Like, this game is so short, you might have played this in one sitting, or you might have played this in maybe 2 sittings or something like that. So I always had like close enough proximity to all those other events that we talked about that maybe you were sad about, maybe you were upset about, or, you're just following along with the roller coaster of this character's life. And then you get to this last level and it's like, their life is awesome. They clearly have like a loving relationship. Their career's great. And they're having a kid. And so a big part of this level is setting up the kids' room.
Yes. And that was such a surprise to me. And I don't know why, but the setting up the kids' room really impacted me in a way I was not expecting. Like, I cried on stream when I was putting away the kids' room. Like, maybe it was just, like, the fact that all the items are so small and precious. But I do think this level does such a good job at really, like, emulating this happiness and content feeling that our main character has. Like, it just feels like home. It's like warm, fuzzy feelings. It's great. There's even like cricket sounds from outside. You can tell we're in like a suburban area. There's a nice backyard. You can kind of look out into the backyard from from the kitchen, I think, and see a fence. And it's, it's just the vibes are immaculate in this level. Yep.
It's great. And so you can also, in that baby's room, your characters brought some of their sentimental, like, stuffed animals, and those can go in the baby's room. And so, like, we haven't mentioned it every single time, but they brought a stuffed pig with them every single place they moved. The stuffed pig always made the trip. And then in this last level, the stuffed pig can go in the baby's crib. And it's just super cute. Like, the simple act of like, you've unpacked this pig 10 times and then you're putting it in the baby's crib. You've gone through this journey with the character, and you can feel like how it must feel for them to be like, okay, I'm passing this on now.
Definitely. Like, give it, like, yeah, just passing it on. And I don't know, seeing all of the art, we finally have like the max amount of little collectible chickens that we're going to get.
There's so fucking many of them.
There's so many. I'm like, I want to separate them because I'm so annoyed at having so many of them. But yeah, there really are items in this like final level that have been with you since the beginning, and to be able to like pass those on and have them in your nursery is a really sweet feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And the basket of mixed wires and cords is still with you.
Still there, still providing that emotional support for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just think like, I don't know, I love when games can surprise me like this and make me think about my life too in such a big, impactful way, because like, I can't believe a video game is making me think about whether or not I want to be a parent someday. Like, I just didn't know that video games, you know, at the time in my life when I played this game, I didn't know it was possible for video games to give you that feeling. So I was really kind of on an emotional roller coaster experiencing this for the first time on stream. But there's also these really cute little, I think they're walkie-talkies on the nightstand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, what's that about? I don't know, but I love it.
Yeah, I had wondered, is that baby related? Is it safety related? Or are they just, you know, they're just a fun-loving couple that, you know, they have little walkie-talkies and they call each other on them from time to time. I don't know, but yeah.
Maybe they just like to have fun. I don't know. It was, yeah. I noticed those, and seeing the stack of books that we wrote felt like, yeah, I felt like accomplished for some reason. And I don't know. Yeah. This whole experience is just so sweet.
It is. Yeah. Along the lines of what you said about kind of like video games having potential that you didn't know about to have affecting stories. I think that that's a misconception that a lot of people who don't play games, or maybe they played games 25 years ago, and like there were games telling stories a long time ago, like 25 plus years. But like, you know, I think about the games I played when I was a kid. If I had just played Mario and, you know, this Power Rangers game that I had, and like, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff like that, and then stopped playing games, I would probably just I would assume that they were always like that and not telling stories in a way that can affect you. And I just think like Unpacking is a great example. Florence is another one where you can show them to people with such a low barrier of entry to show the storytelling capabilities. Because for me personally, the fact that this is all interactive and that I'm experiencing the story through the stuff that I'm moving around, or in Florence, the little things I'm doing on the touch screen, those are so simple. Both of these, like the method of interaction is so simple compared to, you know, like The Last of Us or something that's like also trying to tell stories. The method of interaction is so simple here. I don't know. For me, and sounds like for you too, the impact of the story is not lessened by like the simplicity of it all. It's like the potential is there to tell stories that are really, really well executed. And I think you can play through Unpacking on like a very surface level pretty easily. Like you might notice the diploma and be like, hey, that's kind of fucked up. And then you'd be like, oh, look, they're having a baby, stuff like that. But like, I think that if one of the best parts about replaying this is I already knew what was going to happen, so I could really take in the details of the stuff and kind of those small little connections that you may have to like think about a little bit more. And it just opens up like a world of depth to the story that like I knew was there, but revisiting it and seeing it is really great. And so like, I think this game is really excellent for showcasing the potential and capability for video games to tell really affecting stories.
Yeah, you pretty much just explained why I love games so much because, I mean, you also, and a lot of people have said this before, but you are able to interact with them so personally too, like, mechanically and perceiving everything and even making choices can really force you to connect in a way that I don't really think you can do with like movies, or I guess some other mediums of art, not to discount them, but the stories that are told in video games are so special to me and have honestly like really changed my life. And as a newcomer to the hobby, I guess you could call it, I just want other people to be able to experience that. So what you were saying about like, low barriers to entry for games like this, like I think these are the games that are going to have more, like, create more gamers in the world, basically, if they can be introduced to something like this, which is something that I have started to take with me, and I'm trying to teach at the college that I work at now, doing some educator professional development sessions about how video games are more than a lot of people see them as just like guns and violence, which is so not true. That's even how I saw them before 2021. So it is really eye-opening to have these experiences, and I just want more people to be able to play games and experience them.
Yeah. And even within the guns and violence genre, there are incredible stories being told there as well too.
So true.
And yeah, like I remember I was talking with my parents about, something, I don't know how it came up. I was talking about Keanu Reeves and how he was in Cyberpunk. And like my parents were like, video games have voice acting. Like they legitimately didn't know that was something that happened. So I think that it is, it is still a relatively new medium, and there's a lot of not necessarily like, well, there is misinformation, but there's just a lot of like, hey, a lot of people don't know the potential for storytelling here. And that interactivity is the missing piece, I think, for a lot of them.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I'm just so happy that this game exists, and I hope that people will pick it up if they haven't yet.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, Rookie wanted to be heard. Real quick, there is an after credits picture of the couple with their new baby watching the sunset. So that's, a nice little thing after the credits, you see that. And then there was one thing I wanted to ask you about before we go, which is the Dark Star playthrough, which I had no idea about before I started playing, which is why it's here in the spoiler section. Or I had no idea about until you said it. I had played the game 2 times, and you led me on to something that I had no idea about. So can you introduce people to what the Dark Star playthrough is?
Yes, so the Dark Star run of Unpacking, or as I am calling it, Unpacking's challenge run, because I just learned what a challenge run is recently, and I'm like, I'm going to do challenge runs for Cozy Games. But this is when you put every item in an incorrect place. So you would think, if you've played the game before, like, oh, it's got the little red outline, I can't put it there. But if you manage to put every single item in a bad place, so to say, with the little red outline, you will be able to complete that level, and the little gold star that appears at the bottom of the screen, and you get that beautiful sound effect with the little gold star, changes to sort of a minor key, and it like descends instead of ascends, the audio cue does. And then you get a black star with a little circle around it. And then you just keep going through each level doing that. And then at the end, and also the text is different at the bottom. Like an example is, it will say, in the boyfriend's apartment, the text reads, "It's fine, he likes my spontaneity." And then the record player's like in the shower, cups are on top of the toilet. So it's full chaos mode. It's super fun. But I will say, careful if you stream it, because people will be more angry than ever seeing all of the items in disarray, in pure chaos. So it's just a fun little challenge. It does genuinely get quite challenging in some levels, because you're like, where is the bad place to put this so I can get the outline, little red outline. So I think that doing a Dark Star mode is super fun. And then when you finish a Dark Star run, you get a black star on your book instead of the gold star. So I highly recommend trying it out.
So is the general strat to like just put everything on the floor, but like you probably don't have enough floor space to do that for everything.
Exactly. That's why I ended up putting things like in the shower, on top of toilets, because you don't have that's the challenging part of it, is there's not enough floor space for all the items.
Yeah. I thought that this would be like the bad playthrough, where it would be like your character has like a really depressing life and they're angry or something like that. But it's more like, the little text captions are just more like, they're just a little bit like edgy and chaotic.
Yeah.
Instead of like they're kind of playful instead of just being like sad. Like you see some, it'd be like, fuck everything, I don't care anymore. There's nothing like that.
It's just silly goofy. It's silly goofy fun. And yeah, if you've played the game before, that's when you want to do your Dark Star run.
Yeah.
But I don't think I timed myself doing it, but I want to do it again and time myself because I think I was pretty good at it.
Well, we've already established you're a chaos person, so it fits.
True, you need the true chaotic person to complete the Dark Star challenge run. But
Right.
yeah, it's fun. So if folks are curious, I recommend just giving it a shot. See if it's for you. Just try one level.
Yeah. Well, I hope someone listening to the end of the podcast, the end of the spoiler section, has either played Unpacking before, and then
Yeah.
they can go try out the chaos mode, or they don't care about spoilers and they can go try out both of these. Play the regular way, play the Dark Star way. I did watch a video of someone's playthrough of the Dark Star mode, and it looked like it's an absolute mess. So
Not for you.
no, not for me, but I didn't even consider like my own tendencies when organizing or something. Like I'm pretty messy by nature, but I'm not like my stuff on the floor messy.
Yeah.
Like my desks are cluttered and stuff like that, but I don't just like throw all my shit on the floor.
You don't have a
Only
wardrobe?
some of it. I do like my jeans and stuff go on the floor. I feel like that's fine, but like not my shirts and stuff like that.
So fair.
Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome episode. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, walk through Unpacking with me, talk about these story beats. I knew that this game, like I said, basically from the time I started the podcast, I've always had this on the list of like, I'll do an episode someday when I need a short game, when somebody suggests to do it on the show, I'll do it. It was always on that list. And so it's off the list now. I appreciate you making that happen. This has been awesome.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Dave. And if anyone here listening came because of NSG, Dave will also be on our show, and we're so excited to have you soon.
Yeah.
And yeah, this has just been a delight. I don't think we'll ever cover Unpacking on No Small Games, so I really appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about my favorite game on your show.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really good episode. I think this was great. And I'm really happy with, the way we covered Unpacking here. So
Same.
I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate your insight into the game. And I will give the call one more time at the end of the episode for everyone listening to please check out No Small Games. Maybe follow Kate on Twitch. If you see her streaming, go say hey. And once again, all of those links will be down in the show notes, so you don't have to go searching or anything like that. And if you've listened all the way to the end of the podcast, as always, you are my hero. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Welcome to No Small Games, the indie gaming recap and review podcast. I'm Kate, also known as Katerblossom.
And I'm Emily. You might also know me online as The Specific Egg.
And we met streaming and playing video games on Twitch.
At No Small Games, we combine our favorite genres to experience everything the indie game world has to offer and share it with all of you. We believe there are no small games only small game studios.
Each episode, we'll choose one indie game that we each played separately and discuss our playthrough experience together.
The good, the bad, and our most memorable moments. We'll follow our recap with a review and announcement of which indie game will be featured on our next episode.
We invite you to play each game along with us and would love to hear from you about your playthrough experience.
Hey, Kate.
Hey, Emily.
I hope that No Small Games brings everyone some big fun.
Hello, my name is Aaron. I'm one half of Super Pod Saga, a topical variety video game podcast fueled entirely by nostalgia and unleaded gasoline. Super Pod Saga, we discuss a different video game topic each and every week. We have new episodes every single Monday covering a different video game topic. More than anything, we want to entertain our listeners and make you feel like you're one of the boys, like you're hanging out at a campfire with some of your best zany, caffeine-powered buddies and just talking about your favorite games and all that stuff. Stop on down to Super Pod Saga. It's on every podcatcher there is. If it's not, let me know and we'll get on it. Again, Super Pod Saga, stop on by.